That is not a dog. I am Amanda Willis. I live in a small town in the northern part of Michigan in a small cabin in the woods. Living in the woods in a secluded area is tough and often leave people feeling lonely. As a result, I decided to go to my local shelter and adopt a dog. I figured I live in a secluded area with lots of land and forest for the dog to run around. I also work, mostly from my home, giving me free time needed to take care of a dog. At the local shelter, I noticed nothing odd. It was the normal barks and whimpers of dogs, wagging their tails excitedly to leave their kennels. I'll be honest, I always hated going to animal shelters. Seeing all the animals, some cowering and some begging to be let out, always filled my heart with sorrow. I was sick of loneliness though, and to be completely honest, I am not the biggest people person. So a dog it was. I had always wanted a dog as a kid and loved every dog I was allowed to pet. My parents could never afford one, and I never got around to getting one as an adult. I was most interested in getting a larger dog, one who would enjoy running around my land and perhaps even go on long walks with me. Most of the dogs just didn't appeal to me until I came across a large, scrawny, black and white mutt. I'm not the greatest with dog breeds, but I had guessed possibly border collie, greyhound, and perhaps a little bit of pit bull. The shelter labeled the dog as a border collie mix. The dog had a longer snout, blockier head, long thin legs, and a leaner build. He had half prick ears, one slightly floppier than the other. His eyes were an icy shade of blue, but one had brown mixed in. He was stunning. I kneeled beside the cage, and he wagged his tail and hesitantly got up and approached. His movements were off. It was like of a creature not quite used to walking on four legs, like a human trying to walk on four legs. Who's this guy? I asked the worker who had accompanied me into the kennel room. Oh, him, she said nervously. He's a dog we recently took in, found by a stranger on the side of the street. No sign of a microchip and no one has taken him in. But the lady trailed off, clearly uncertain whether to say something. What about him? I asked. He acts a little weird. He doesn't play with the dogs or other dogs. Heck, the other dog seems to be afraid of him. Whenever he approaches, even the friendliest dogs we have at the shelter, he sends them away, running, barking, and snarling, hackle raised and trembling. He's been returned 5 times in a month we have him here, all without notice. The owners always return looking nervous and never give us a clear answer. The shelter worker stuttered out her reply. At the moment, I felt bad for the poor boy. It wasn't his fault, but I guess I should have heeded the warnings. I adopted him and took him home that day, and the things got weirder each day. On the way home, I took him to a local pet store, a small family owned business, on a leash. Every dog that came across him lunged and barked, cowering behind their owners. Every dog, no matter the breed or size, even a guide dog I had frequently met when I went into the town, had lost it. That dog was the most stable ever, never barking or showing a speck of fear or aggression to anyone. It was odd, but I just figured it was nothing. Perhaps normal. I had never owned a dog before, so I didn't question. I had jokingly at the time named him Cujo, after the rabid Saint Bernard in Cujo. Now I'm afraid that it isn't a joke anymore. Everything went silent when we entered the woods together. Birds flew away, crickets stopped chirping, not a single snap of twig in the distance, just complete dead silence. His eyes appeared to glow in the dark, a piercing blue through the dark of night. The experience that confirmed my theory was after a month of owning Kuju. The name had stuck. I awoke at a night to a strange silence that had fallen across the house. I got up, my throat dry to get a drink of water. The house was dead silent. Not even the house settling was heard. My heart hammered in my chest as I headed for the kitchen. A crunch, snap, crack was heard from the direction of the kitchen. Uju? I called out. Hesitantly, the noises stopped. I entered the kitchen to see Kuju standing on his back legs, his arms positioned weirdly. And the worst part about it, his head was turned around so he was staring at him. His back facing me, but his head was shriveled around. His mouth was partially open, drool dripping from his mouth. I let out a scream and sprinted to my room. The next morning, when I crept out, Kuju came to me with a wagging tail, holding something in his mouth. He dropped it at my feet, and I heard the gag as the body of a dismembered squirrel landed at my feet, its intestines leaking from his body. I found many more of this that day, of many different animals, even a deer. He had somehow brought into the house. The smell of blood and decay was evident even after I scrubbed the house from head to toe. At that point, I didn't know what to do. I was terrified of him, but I didn't want to return him. What would I even tell them? Plus, he wasn't a bad companion outside of those incidents. The worst experience of all when I awoke facing the ceiling. I didn't open my eyes right away, but I felt something dripping onto my face. I ground and wiped the liquid away. I opened my eyes and let out a scream. Kuju was on the ceiling, his jaw stretched out so wide it looked to be dislocated. He was perched on the ceiling, his body twisted in a way that shouldn't be possible. His eyes were glowing, not faint glow, but a full-blown glow that illuminated the whole room. A light blue glow. His teeth were sharper and his nails are snarled claws digging into the ceiling. Bits of plaster fell onto my face. I froze and couldn't move. I was so terrified I was frozen out of fear. The creature above came to change, its face fading from once of a dog into one that is almost human. Its flesh and fur fell away, turning into the skin, hair sprouting from his head. The creature The creature looked like me, except it was wrong. Some things weren't right. Its eyes were slightly too close, nails a little too sharp, and nose the wrong shape. To the blind eye, it was me though. It took one of its bony arms and hit me as hard as he could. I awoke with chains connecting me to the wall. No matter how hard I tugged or shifted them, I couldn't figure out a way to unlock them. It was like the creature welded them to my legs. I could hardly even move. I tightened this out on the last of my battery. No one is picking up my calls and I'm afraid of what is to come. I came with a warning. There is someone out there pretending to be me. If you meet someone with long brown hair with green eyes that seems a little too close, claiming to be Amanda Willis, that is not me. I am locked in a basement, chains welded to my legs. I fear I may die down here, and that the thing is going to take my place. I'm afraid it has already hurt people. If you adopt a dog from a local shelter and he displays any unusual behavior or perhaps wrong in any way, return the dog and get rid of it as soon as you can. That is not a dog. This story is written by a Reddit user under the name of Sunshine Snooze. And once again, thank you for binging.